market share sense, as we progress, the percentage of them that are held by people who view them as a capitalized potential profit source is going to rise relative to those who are doing it for funsies or bragging rights. Spam, our favorite topic, and for those who don't know, this is the date in question. That's when you should hold your events, by the way. It is the 13th of April every year. Anyway, this was a husband and wife team of lawyers, and they advertised on Usenet about with their help you could beat the green card lottery. Now, of course, lotteries are to begin with a tax on people who can't do math, but the idea that you could beat it after spending money with a team of lawyers is just, that is really out there. But it worked, so to speak, and that we've been living with it ever since. The latest thing, of course, is blog spam, which is people who have RSS feeds that are trying to fool the search engines. I wouldn't want to be worrying at a search engine place these days about how to avoid being fooled. It must be very difficult. This is one entity. I'm sorry he stopped publishing this, so I used his last picture. I've been yelling at him for stopping, but nevertheless, this is one picture. And again, I don't care sort of what he's collecting. I'm looking at the picture. This is Common Touch's similar picture, 30-day moving average. This is Postini's similar picture. So this is interesting in that I have three sources of what in theory is the same data and the curves sort of look alike. So that probably tells me something. It probably tells me something. Now, each of them, by the way, said something along the lines of there's more spam out there. You know what I think? I honestly don't think there's more. I think what there is the opposition has, with the template spam, figured out a way to make them vary enough that they've beaten, as in permanently beaten, the Bayesian filters. I think they've beaten the Bayesian filters, or DCC, the Distributed Checksum Clearinghouse, by doing enough variation that the only way you can get, say, for example, DCC to work is to turn the knob down far enough that you're getting now false positives and you're blocking real email. And when that happens, you have to give up. And so I don't think, actually, by the way, that this is more spam being sent, because amongst other things, there's no place to go and look and see how much spam is sent, because when everybody's filtering, there's not a source. You can't go to the mouth of the river and measure it. There isn't one, right? If everybody's filtering, you don't know how much there is. But if more of it is appearing in these sites, that probably means more of it's getting through, and I honestly think that it is likely, my guess is, it's likely that the filter failure is happening because the Bayesian techniques are being overwhelmed by variation. That's my personal guess, but that's predicting the future. These are numbers here from Postini. Remember, someone who does direct mail marketing, meaning they mail you junk mail, they view it as a spectacular success if they get a 1% return rate. These folks are getting something like 0.25% success rate of virus infections at zero cost. And they can send as many as they like. This is why, as a business, we're not going to deal with it directly, because they're winning, hands down. Pardon me?
I think we're finding a lot of the growth comes from image spams.
Image spams, sure.
Yes, the text filter.
Sure. All of my spam at work is image spam. And the titles are getting cleverer. They obviously have harvested some Usenet groups that I've spoken on, so they come in with titles like latest spam statistics, and then it's a piece of freaking spam trying to sell me Cialis or something, right? It's just fabulous. It's just fabulous. It is a game.
I would agree that the growth represents more success by the spam.
Right.
Rather than more spam sales.
Okay.
Which again correlates to botnet statistics.
Yeah. So we're trying to predict the future here, short term. This is your view. This is the semantic numbers. I happen to think that these are probably better collected than most other people's because they have a much bigger sensor network than anybody else, as far as I know. It's the biggest sensor network for this kind of thing out there. Every statistic has some underestimation bias as the filtering mechanisms proliferate. There's both inbound and outbound. I assume most people would agree that it's one, a nuisance, and two, essential that people like Comcast or Cox Digital or people like that now won't let you connect to won't let you telnet outbound to an SMTP port directly. I assume those of you who run machines at home probably are answering email on port number. You pick a number of 1593 or something, as opposed to on 25, just for the reason that and they're absolutely right about this, which is that if they ever get in trouble for emitting large quantities of spam, the best way for them to protect themselves is just to block 25 outbound, and most of them are doing it now. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't necessarily mind some sort of rules about egress filtering being the commonplace in the future. I really wouldn't. Work. This is the National Vulnerability Database. They publish a number every day about what is the work factor for people like you and me. I've been collecting it. They only publish one number a day. They don't collect it. I don't know why, but here it is. These dotted lines are days on which Microsoft releases their patches. As you can see, there's always a jump. The minimum day here was the Sunday after Thanksgiving. The maximum day was the day before Christmas. My guess is what that represented was something along the lines of an all-out attack on the Internet Christmas shopper, but what do I know? But anyway, those are the numbers. The blue one is the actual day-to-day numbers. The red one is obviously the trailing one, and then there's a fitted line. This is, I think, a lot of fun. I went back and looked at it by day of the week. It's a freaking sine curve. I don't know why that is true, but it's true, and that tells me that it's likely that there are people out here who are doing this, that the vulnerability stuff that NVD is picking up is probably people who are working a job. And there's I didn't show you some of the APWG's work, which shows that the number of phishing mails, and you guys have shown this too, the number of phishing mails goes way down on weekends. It implies that the opposition has a work week. If that isn't a sign that it's a job, I don't know what. If they got a freaking work week, how can it not be a job? So, spyware. You're probably getting tired of these numbers, but I like numbers, and you'll have to put up with me. This is spyware from WebRoot. You'll notice that there's a gap between Q2 of 06 and now. Gerhard Eschelbeck moved over there from Qualys. He called a halt to the way they were doing things. They're going to do it entirely different. That's wonderful and terrible at the same time, but these are their numbers. The reason I put them up here is this is interesting. Percent carrying spyware. Now, mind you, they'd have a broad definition, but that's okay. Percent carrying spyware. A number of programs amongst those who have any. Now, the point of this is, if whatever it is you do causes you to pick this stuff up, you've probably picked up more than one. I used to work in the medical world. People had the kind of embarrassing transmissible diseases tended to have more than one. It's the same phenomenon, right? If wherever you go causes you to get these, I'm not answering that. Thank you. Percent carrying Trojans, it's rising. This is the if you have more than one Trojan, you're likely to have. If you have one Trojan, you're likely to have more than one. Not a surprise. If you're likely to have a keylogger, a percentage of people who have one keylogger have more than one. I work for a data security firm. That's not what this is a talk about. We went into a place in D.C. It's a federal integrator. The place was everybody had a TS. We found a keylogger on the section head's desk, which only goes to prove that being careful isn't sufficient. And they were on NIPRNet. This is Mike D'Anseglio at Microsoft. I think it's important. When you're dealing with rootkits and some advanced spyware programs, the only solution is to rebuild from scratch. Now, remember, in the real world that we all are trying to think about, a great number of machines are unmanaged. I got a forensics job the other day. It was sort of sad. It was a young man who had taken his own life, and the family wanted to know what I could find on the computers. His web browsers, he had two of them they ran at various intervals. One of them had 600, one of them had over 1,000 cookies. Now, I think that's probably normal. Now, of course, I don't work that way. You probably don't work that way. You probably don't let anybody in your family work that way, but I hadn't thought about that before. 600, 1,000 cookies, I give up. What are you supposed to do? And that's the same thing he's saying here. If it's unmanaged, it isn't long before you accumulate things that they're hard to get rid of. It's just simpler to nuke it all and start over. And it may well be. Microsoft that guy also said that 2/3 of all PCs have unwanted software. IDC says 3/4. A lot of people say 2/3. That is an amazing number when you think about it. That is an amazing fraction. And I don't think they mean, I didn't want Office and it came with it. I don't think they mean that at all. I think what they mean is, I've got software I didn't expect and I didn't want, and if I knew where it was, I wouldn't run it. But this is a real place where, all of the stuff I'm talking about here, the discussion earlier today about we don't have the words to describe this because we can't agree on them, boy, is this a place where that's true. This is really a place where that's true. Who's targeted? You wouldn't be surprised. This is counterpanes data, where the money is, and where the attacks are. Same top three. What a surprise. What a surprise. Because the attacks are, this proves that we have made the transition to attacking for money. Well, I just said that. We've made a transition to where and we don't go back. I don't think we go back to where it's for fun. We stay with where it's for money. Public health. If I was a public health guy, I'd start naming words like this. This is the kind of stuff that I would say. A public health person worries about the transmission of disease in the community at large. That's what got me into trouble with the monoculture thing, for what it's worth, is thinking about disease in the community at large. Or for that matter, why you don't want every farmer in Indiana planting the same variety of soy. You want some variation out there. this is, I'd say often, all in all, that detection is doomed